guck dir das. Wer ist das? Elimelech of Lezhansk. And Elimelech of Lezhansk was a rabbi of a small town called Lezhansk, which we are in, and he lived here and died here, and he's buried here in this honor. After Elimelech of Lezhansk, the Hasidim split into different groups. Can anyone name Hasidic groups? Yeah. Satmar. Yes. Any more? Anti-Zionist. Yeah. Chabad. Yes. Lubavitch. Chabad. More? Bobov. Yeah. They have different traditions, different customs, different ways of wearing clothes. They have different leaders. Okay. Any more? Gaul. You may have heard of Gaul, Gera Hasidim. You may have heard of Belz Hasidim, or you may have heard of Breslav Hasidim, of Nachman mi Breslav, who wrote Kol Ha'olam Kulo, Geshet Tzar Mo'od. So all these leadership, Zadiko, please don't touch the shul. However, Count Potocki, despite trying to save the shul, is unable to save the Jews. In 1942, the Jews of Landshut were taken to Belzec and murdered. There are no Jews today in Landshut. What happens to Count Potocki's descendant in 1945? Well, Poland becomes communist. He's wealthy. As a wealthy Pole, he can't afford to stay here. So he moves to France, and he takes all of his artwork and all his furniture with him to France. The only thing he's not able to take to France are his carriages, his horse-drawn carriages. So in the museum today, there's the most boring museum ever. Mirek למד עברית.
אני לומד לבד, אני אוטודידקט.
אוטודידקט, כן.
אני לומד בבית הכנסת, באוניברסיטה שלי זה בית הכנסת.
You understand? His university is the synagogue. And that's how he teaches himself Hebrew. אני יכול לראות את המחברת שלך? תביא מהמחברת, איפה אתה יושב?
כן, יש עם עצמו מחברת.
תביא אחד, שאני אראה להם.
כן, אני במחברת.
אתה יכול להביא להם?
אתה רוצה?
כן, אני רוצה לקרוא Hebrew dictionary. That's how he teaches himself Hebrew.
וואו.
עכשיו, הם אמריקאים, והם למדו בבית ספר, חלק מהם בבית ספר יהודי.
אבל מה אני?
אוקיי, הם רוצים לדעת, אתה יהודי.
תחשוב אתה יכול אחרת, התשובה לשאלה בתוך החיים מסתתרת. אל תפחד עכשיו, כי לא עבדה לך הדרך. אל תפחד עכשיו, אם לא היום אולי עוד שעה. עולם מוזר, לא שלך, כשהתקווה בלב בוערת. יש בדידות, יש כאב, האיש יודע. בעצם זה שלא נשברת, אל תתייאש עכשיו, האמונה אותך שומרת.
Very good, you see the Akedah. Yes, the Akedah with Isaac. What's stopping Abraham from killing Isaac? Yes, he's an angel. See? But all faceless. Very important, faceless. Because it would have been forbidden to paint faces in the shul. So we need to do something. So I hope we're able to put this up. Nazi ideology as expressed by Hitler in Mein Kampf. There is a concept of Lebensraum, living space. In order for the Aryan race to fulfill its potential, it had to expand eastward towards Russia, Poland. The argument was that the Nazi Germans would use this land much better than the Slavs were using it. And the Slavic peoples would turn into slaves before they would eventually disappear. So when Germany establishes death camps in Poland, they don't really care about what the local Poles think of these death camps.
And so we had to pay quite a bit to get her back before they could go on a boat to America.
Your great-grandparents had to pay.
Yes, my great-grandparents had to pay. They had little gold bars they kept in their coats to pay. So they hid it. And they were sponsored to come to America. And my great-grandparents were severely traumatized. They tried to have another child, but were constantly miscarrying because they couldn't, my great-grandmother, her body just couldn't physically handle it because she was they never adjusted to American society. My grandmother was actually glad that they didn't have any more children because she knew that they couldn't care for them because they could barely care for her. So she would end up having to care for them. And they ended up in Michigan after New York, and my mother talks about how they were always very conscious and scared whenever they would play in the backyard.
Right. Let's go back to this Schal. These special policemen are called Einsatzgruppen. And their mission is to cleanse these areas now occupied by Nazi Germany of potential enemies of the Nazi rule. What does that involve? Cleansing, killing, particularly people who could be associated with communism, Bolshevism. Now, in the mind of the Nazi ideology, Jews are associated with communism. We were tortured like this by the trucks until late in the evening. Those for whom there was no room in the truck were ordered to run after the truck. I had my daughter in my arms and ran after the truck. There were those who fell. We were not